So whether you're a small business like Nora's or a very, very large business like Marriott, this issue of tight supply can be tricky, right? And Brad, you set a really interesting goal of offering only cage-free eggs by 2015, correct?
Yeah. Foolishly maybe. But.
And you've been working on this for 3 years, and it's pretty challenging to source entirely cage-free eggs. And is this just for the U.S. operations?
I think it's it's really Americas. So I would say
just U.S. Okay.
Toronto to Sao Paulo. But I think it's really an example of the challenges in supply and demand. I mean, so. With any market, we need to build the supply and then create the demand to be able to balance against that supply. And I think we are still in that balancing act right now, where we know there's a lot of desire. We know a lot of people, like filled in this room here, that we all firmly believe what's being said, and we want to act on that. And yet, oftentimes that doesn't necessarily come through with the masses or with the general population. So building that story, the last panel I thought was actually something that we need to do a lot more talking about, of how to tell a story that's reasonable and that is scalable. The cage-free egg thing, we did trans fats 8 years ago. We did. We're doing crate-free pork, which I don't want to get into too much. And it really is a challenge, because anybody will grow or raise or sell you anything if you agree to buy it at a certain price. And there is a premium for anything that we are talking about in this room that has this story. And whether that premium is truly warranted or not is sometimes debatable. But it does cost more money to do some of these things that we're talking about. And at the end of the day, if this panel is called the business of food, this is a business. And restaurants are not nonprofit organizations. Or there's an old joke that if you wanted to open a nonprofit, then go open a restaurant. So I think it is. It's not an ideological thing for me. Although I do have, I grew up in Seattle, and somebody from Whidbey Island was here on the earlier panel. That's actually where I want to retire. And I worked for many years in San Francisco, and I get all of that. There is a difference from scaling it from a single entity or a single location, coast, city, to globally, across 4,300 hotels with, I don't even know how many restaurants we have, to be honest with you. It's a huge number. And the ability to actually fill that supply gap where the demand is there. And so I think it really is that. The cage-free egg thing, one of my beliefs is that I actually have the ability to kind of influence these larger producers, because I truly am our company can be a big deal to, pork supplier, egg supplier, or whatever. But we have to agree to actually pay that 30% premium. And we have to agree that, breakfast is one of the places where these eggs are used, and according to, with a lot of other locations. But how much more can I actually charge for a breakfast buffet? Those of you that are, we appreciate your business, but how much more can I really charge? So, at the end of the day, it is a margin-based business as well. And so when we can actually start changing some of the dialogue about cost and value from margin to more bottom line as well as top line, and good that it does, then that's a good thing. Hotels are not, we manage, we don't own the properties. So it's a different business model as well.
And given the global scale of your company with 4,300 hotels around the world, right? Are you concerned with sourcing not just cage-free eggs, but other things you might, other targets or priorities that you might be setting down the line for food? Is there really the supply there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge issue. So I think it really becomes a regional and global issue. So we have, lots of great resources here and in Europe to be able to source locally and have some of these things that we employ in the sourcing. In other parts of the world, we're opening a hotel in 3 weeks in Haiti. First company to go in and actually build after, the terrible earthquake. And we have spent, I don't know how many trips our teams have gone down to actually source the basics, chicken and produce. And essentially we are building the infrastructure in some ways by actually committing to these farmers that, yeah, we'll buy everything you grow. No matter what you grow, we'll figure out a way to use it on the menu, we'll buy it. But at the same time, the majority of product that we actually have to source is going down in a container because there is no access. We have the same problem in the Caribbean sometimes with seafood, believe it or not. Place surrounded by water and surrounded by beautiful fish, pretty tough to get ice in some of those boats. So some of the infrastructure challenges is an issue. I just, about 2 hours ago, was answering an email from our group that operates the operations in China, northern China. And we had just come out with, for one of our particular brands, a requirement that each hotel has a kitchen garden, a chef's garden. And it's something we've been doing for years, but we actually came out with a brand policy on this particular, saying you have to have a garden. Well, Beijing sent me a note and said, have you ever been to Beijing? and so, it's not that easy. And I guess, my belief is that building the demand will then encourage more people to farm, encourage more access to the product, but it really is a balance, and one can't start without the other.